Internet? Corinne here, and this week I'm taking an old wedding dress I found at the thrift store and turning it into a Frozen-inspired prom look. You're watching Threadheads. Okay, so first things first, finding a dress. I found this dress for $30 at my local thrift haven. Then I went to the fabric store and picked up a yard of this beautiful fabric for the bodice and 5 yards of this flowy fabric for the cape section, which I got for 50% off with the coupon. Score! I also picked up some dye and some paint. This dress is 100% polyester, which doesn't typically dye that well, but I went for it anyway. First thing I did though was remove the puffy underskirt of tulle to make the process a ton easier. For the dye bath, I heated water on the stove and dumped it into a plastic bin. Then I added a cup of salt and 2 more pots of hot water. Lastly, I added the dye and gave it a good stir. Stir it up, little darling, stir it up. Next, I submerged the dress, making sure to squeeze the dress a good amount to get it completely wet. I flipped it a few times through the whole process, but for the most part, just let it hang out in there. While the dress was doing its thing, I took out the cool shiny fabric I bought and started cutting a bunch of little squares. Many, many, many little squares. After the dress was dyed to my liking, I rinsed it till the water ran clear and let the dress dry completely. Then I mixed together the paint I bought with a little bit of water. One of the paints has glitter in it, so that's pretty cool. I painted the whole bodice area. Then I extended the paint downward in a brushing motion to create an ombre effect. After the paint was dry, I took on the arduous task of gluing all the little squares to the bodice. For this, I used clear Max Tacky Glue. I simply put a line of glue on each square and stuck it to the dress. I did this over and over and over again until I was happy with the coverage. Then I let it dry overnight and was really happy with how it came out. To create the cape, I simply took the flowy fabric I bought and hemmed the edges. To do this, I set my stitch width to 3 and selected the zigzag stitch. Then I set the stitch length to 0.5. Next, I laid a strip of tissue paper down, put the edge of the fabric on top, and used the selvage edge as a guide for sewing a straight line. Once it's all sewn, cut the outer edge away from the stitch line to create a pretty finished edge. I attached one end of the fabric to each side of the back of the opening by finding the midpoint of each end and attaching it to this area, then attaching it like so to these areas. I let the excess of each side of the pin sections drape down, then I took the bottom part of the fabric that's now touching the floor and draped it around the neck. I simply used safety pins on the inside of the dress to connect the fabric, but you can hand sew it if you want. I like the option of being able to use the fabric for something else, so I didn't want it to be permanent. Doing the cape in this fashion makes it so you can dance without having to worry about tripping over it all night, and you can also pull down the fabric a little bit in the front to cover your arms if you get chilly. I love how this look reminds me of Elsa, but also has a really cool vintage vibe. To complete the look, I added some vintage starburst earrings, a vintage brooch at the bottom of my braid, some petite white gloves, and light eye makeup. I also had this really cute little silver purse that added the perfect touch. And Elsa, she's totally cool about going to prom solo. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in a comment if there's any other Disney princesses you would like to see me reinterpret for formal events or maybe Dapper Day at Disney. And until next time, snip snip.